My name is Leila Oakley, and I am the Outreach and Engagement Manager for Just Faith Ministries, and I'm glad that you all are able to join us. Today we're going to spend the next hour or so together. We will, Kristen and I, and Kristen will introduce herself in a moment, we're going to be covering all our current program offerings, giving you an idea of what Just Faith Ministries is offering in 2023, which Happy New Year to you all. And then we will be talking about the programs that we're going to be releasing this upcoming year. So what you can anticipate with new program releases. And then we'll be answering any questions that you bring with you today about Just Faith Ministries, about a specific program, anything that you might be wondering about, we'll be happy to answer during the Q&A. And I wanted to start just by getting to know who's on the call today. There's few too many of us to actually unmute and share aloud, but I invite you, if you're willing and able, to go to the chat and say hi down there if you want to enter where you're calling in from, so where you find yourself today and your experience with Just Faith Ministries. So you could either let us know if you've done a specific program, let us know if you're very familiar with us, or maybe if you're brand new and just heard about us. So if you want to put that down in the chat, yeah, we'd just love to know who's here joining us today. Welcome, 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 Alfonso. Welcome. Good to have Jack, one of our colleagues and the founder of Just Faith Ministries, here today. So if you ask any questions we're not able to answer, we will punt it over to him. So Jack, be prepared. Wonderful. Well, if you're just now joining, I invite you to send a message in the chat to let folks know who you are and your experience with Just Faith Ministries. Welcome, Dave. We're going to go ahead and get started with an opening prayer. And this opening prayer comes from our Want to Talk program. We'll be sharing more about the Want to Talk program, but this program focuses on communication and connection. And so we're going to begin with it to start our time together. And the prayer is titled Between. So if you'll join me for a time of prayer. God is not in me nor in you, but between us.
God is not me or mine, nor you or yours, but ours.
God is known not alone, but in relationship.
Not as a separate, lonely power, but through our kinship, our friendship, through our healing and binding and raising up of each other.
To know God is to know other. To love God is to love others. To hear God is to hear others.
More than meditation, more than insight, more than feeling, between us are claims, obligations, commandments, to act, to do, to behave our beliefs.
I seek God not as if God were alone, an isolated person, he or she, a process, a power, a being, a thing.
I seek God not as if I were alone, a thinker, a mediator, a discrete entity.
I seek God in connection. In the nexus of community, I pray and celebrate the betweenness which binds and holds us together.
And even when I am left alone, I am sustained by my memory of our betweenness and the promise of our betweenness.
God is not in me or in you or in God's self, but in betweenness. And it is there we find the evidence of God's reality and our own. Amen.
Amen.
Well, welcome again, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. My name is Kristen Dollar, and I'm the Director of Programs here at Just Faith Ministries, which means that I get to work with folks who are really experts in their fields to create our programs. And a little bit about who we are for anyone who is new to us. Our mission is to create transformative small group programs that inspire action in order to address the root causes of injustice, while of course serving with love. Our vision is justice-driven communities that advance peace and racial equity and a sustainable world. So we're excited to share more about what we do with you today. Here's a list about our topics. We're just going to touch on each of them really briefly today. And if you'd like to hear more, we'd love to talk more one-on-one with you.
So Sacred Land, Food and Farming is the first program in a 3-part series, our Eco-Justice series. These programs can be done in the order I'm about to share with you, or in any order that might be appropriate for you or your community based on your passions and your interests. Sacred Land, Food and Farming is designed for a small group, like all of our programs are, and it looks at practices that affect the climate crisis, specifically looking at those effects on marginalized communities and their health and spiritual well-being. Participants explore practical ways that they can get involved in sustainable food and farming practices, both within the communities they find themselves in, as well as the institutions they're connected to. The program seeks to celebrate our connection, our sacred connection to the land and the nourishment it provides. It's designed to help us learn more about those food and farming practices and how those practices are connected to the climate crisis and how that climate crisis affects marginalized communities. And then again, to develop those tools to take action. The books in this program, there are 3 books. The first is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And the second book is Earth Prayers. And the third book is Laudato Si by Pope Francis. So again, this is the first program in the series, but can be done at any point that interests your group. We then have Sacred Water. Sacred Water, Oceans, and Ecosystems is designed to explore our relationship with water, to explore how our relationship with water is connected and a part of the Christian scriptures, as well as our daily lives. In this program, we learn about the health of our oceans, our waterways, and our ecosystems, and how we can take action through advocacy, grassroots organizing, and even our daily decision making. It is a program that looks at the water crisis, both nationally and globally, looking at issues of natural disaster, polluted drinking water. And again, is like the Sacred Land program, is looking at how these issues disproportionately affect communities of color. And it's helping you develop a plan of action. The books in this program are When the World Runs Dry, Earth, Water, and Crisis, Earth Prayers, and then again, Laudato Si, which is used throughout the series. The third program in the series is Sacred Air. And in this program, the small group discerns ways to restore health to our planet and to everyone who lives in it. The small group looks at both the causes and the effects of the climate crisis, examining topics like greenhouse gases, air pollution, fossil fuels, renewable energy, the Paris Agreement, and environmental racism. Both through prayer and spiritual practice, participants are able to notice the breath of God that flows through them and how that energy interacts with the world around them. It, like the other programs, helps participants to discern meaningful ways to address these ecological issues, specifically in this program, addressing climate crisis through advocacy, grassroots organizing, and also, like in the other programs, daily decision making. The books in this program, like the other ones, there's Laudato Si by Pope Francis, Earth Prayers, and The Story of More, How We Got to Climate Change and Where to Go From Here.
We also have a racial justice series that's in 3 parts. The first one is Faith and Racial Equity. And this really focuses on power and privilege and how that manifests itself in our society today. Participants develop an awareness of the ways in which racial privilege interacts, the way that they see the world and interacts and impacts their communities and congregations. It takes a deep dive into the Gospel of Luke and looks at how Jesus's teachings guide us in seeking racial justice in today's world. And of course, like all of our programs, it introduces some practical tools for becoming anti-racist and affecting change that's real and concrete in our communities. The books in this one are I'm Still Here by Austin Channing Brown and White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. And then the third book that is shared throughout the 3 programs is a spiritual practice book. It's called 40 Days of Prayer by Sherry Mills. The next program in the series is called Faith and Racial Healing. This program, it narrates the history of racism in the United States from the perspective of Africans who were enslaved and their descendants. We do this because we believe that to really understand how racism operates today, we have to and how race was invented as a construct, we have to understand this history. So it helps participants to seek the truth of our collective history of racism and violence in our country and our world, so that we can really seek real restoration with God and with one another. The books in this one are The Color of Compromise by Jemar Tisby and Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Joy DeGruy. And of course, 40 Days of Prayer, which is shared throughout. And then the third program in this series is Faith and Racial Justice, Changing Systems and Structures. And this program, it invites will invite your small group to formulate Christian-rooted responses to racism and all the institutions of which we're a part, particularly our churches and congregations, but also other institutions as well. It really focuses on systemic racism, and not just in an abstract way, but in the ways in which we encounter systemic racism in our daily lives. The books for this one are The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander and The New Jim Crow Organizing Guide by Daniel Hunter. It's really practical, kind of a 101 on some grassroots organizing techniques that you could really use in your congregation. And I will also say we have a spiritual version of this racial justice series for folks who are not necessarily affiliated with a Christian or Catholic community and are interested in approaching this from the perspective of mindfulness and meditation. So the themes are identical, but the book that will be the spiritual practice throughout the 3 programs is called The Inner Work of Racial Justice by Rhonda McGee. And instead of Christian prayer and scripture, folks will be grounded in meditation and mindfulness practices.
Want to Talk Communication Tools for Divided Times is one of our more recent program releases. This program guides small groups in deepening their relationships while teaching individuals how to do that and stay true to their values. The program draws from the wisdom of nonviolent communication, civil dialogue, grassroots organizing, and provides practical tools for navigating political polarization, both within the communities we find ourselves in and even within our own families. The program's goals are to teach the participants how Jesus navigated systemic injustice, political unrest, interpersonal conflict in order to discern how we might respond in similar situations today. It's designed to be a very practical program that teaches you communication tools for seeking justice in the issues that you're most passionate about, to learn to navigate disagreement in a healthier way. Again, whether that's in personal relationships or in a larger picture of working towards systemic change. It's also designed to strengthen communication skills to assist division within a community. So if you find yourself in a congregation, an organization, or in your local city in a community that is divided, the skills and tools that are provided in this program can help you to engage in relationships within those communities and hopefully to bring healing and transformation. The books in this program, there are 2. The first is the Compassion book by Tom Bond. The second is Crucial Conversations, and we're using the third edition of that book by Grinny, Patterson, Macmillan, Switzler, and Gregory. And like the Racial Justice series, we have a more broadly spiritual version of this program. And the more broadly spiritual version of the program is framed by meditation and mindfulness practices as rather than the teachings of Jesus and the Christian prayer. But the goals of the program are very similar. And so that version is available if you find yourself in a context where the spiritual version would be more relevant or would meet the needs of your community.
We also have the Just Faith and Just Faith Catholic series that focuses on poverty and how we can stand in solidarity with folks who are experiencing poverty and work alongside them to alleviate poverty in our local communities and in our world. We have two versions of this. We have an ecumenical version and a specifically Catholic version that focuses on Catholic social teaching. Of course, the ecumenical version is open to folks who are Catholic too, but it does contain wisdom from folks of like a variety of perspectives, while the Catholic one hones in on specifically Catholic teaching. The first program in the series is called Faith and Poverty, a Biblical Response, and this one really lays the theological foundation for how we can stand in solidarity, we can respond to poverty in our communities, so that we can take action in a way that honors God's image in those who we are serving alongside. There's two central questions that really guide this program. The first one is, what tools does my faith have to offer in regard to those really big questions that we all have around poverty and justice? And the second one is, in light of poverty and human suffering in our world, what is the good news of the gospel? So that's our first program in this series. The second one is called Faith and Poverty, a Solidarity Response. And then this one also explores poverty, and it introduces participants to tips and tools that they need to respond. It revolves around these questions and uses stories and scripture and prayer and spiritual practices to address them. The questions are, why are people in poverty? Why are they experiencing poverty in the first place? And then there's the common misconception of, well, why don't people in poverty just get a job? So it addresses some of those misconceptions as well. And it looks at the hurdles that people in poverty face. And so that folks in the small group can come up with and are introduced to some practical tools for how they can actually alleviate those and erase or dismantle some of those hurdles that folks in poverty are experiencing. And the third program in this series is Faith and Poverty, a Justice Response. And so this takes a step back and looks at the big picture of poverty in our local communities and in our nation as a whole. It introduces folks to the systems and structures that perpetuate poverty. And it looks at the systemic barriers that keep people from getting out of poverty. And a lot of times these barriers, they're all around us, but they're really invisible for those of us who don't have to face them. And it gives a lot of attention to the communities of color who are disproportionately and unjustly affected by poverty. And as I mentioned, we have two versions of this program. This series. There's the Catholic version, and then there's ecumenical version. Right now, and we'll work on an ecumenical version of this. But right now, we have a Catholic version of a fourth option, a fourth program in this series. It's called Faith and Poverty, a Global Response. The other three programs really looked at poverty mostly on a local level. It's applicable to a global level as well, but mostly on a local level, partly because it's really easy for people to, or it's easier, to some extent, to get plugged in on a local level. That's not always the case, and a lot of times people's interests are more on a global level. So that's why we created the Global Response in partnership with Catholic Relief Services. And this program invites folks to a new understanding of the dynamics and structures and causes and consequences of global poverty. It provides a scriptural and Catholic framework through Catholic social teaching to address global poverty, and looks at some of the barriers to addressing global poverty and how why poverty is created or how poverty came about, and some of like the underlying dynamics. And of course, as with all of our programs, the goal is to inspire solidarity-focused action that is rooted in the recognition of the inherent dignity of all people. This program can be taken either as the first program in the series or the fourth program in the series. Can be taken as a standalone program. There's a lot of flexibility with this. We do recommend for the previous programs that we've talked about, biblical response, solidarity response, and justice response, that they've been taken in that order, but the global response, there's some more flexibility there. And here you can see the books that are used in each. There's some of them overlap with the ecumenical version and the Catholic version, but there are some differences as well.
Kristen, would you go back one slide? Thanks. Hunger, a Faith and Justice Response explores the root causes of hunger and food insecurity and helps small groups discern how to take action in a way that's compassionate and effective. The program was designed in partnership with an organizational partner, Bread for the World. The program's goals are to raise awareness around these issues, the causes and the consequences of food insecurity, to create solidarity between those with access to food and those who are experiencing food insecurity, and to cultivate personal and group action to end hunger. The program has 2 books that you'll engage with. The first is I Was Hungry, Cultivating Common Ground to End an American Crisis by Jeremy Everett. The second is The End of Hunger, Renewed Hope for Feeding the World by Jenny Eaton Dyer and Catherine Falzani.
Faith and Immigration Justice equips participants to advocate for immigration policies that are just, effective, and compassionate, and it guides folks in leading their communities and extending hospitality towards their immigrant neighbors. Some of the goals are to discern how our faith calls us to respond to this constant immigration debate that's happening in our nation, and to learn some of the reasons why people come to the United States and address misconceptions around that. Learn about basic immigration policy, and there's some cool simulations in this program around immigration policy. Participants learn to answer the question, why don't undocumented immigrants just get in line for citizenship? They learn through the simulations and reading, they learn to answer that question. And of course, the program equips folks to advocate for immigration policy that reflects the values of our faith, and also to do concrete things to welcome our immigrant neighbors in our own local communities.
The Engaging Spirituality series is a 3-program series that guides small groups in developing spiritual practices to ground their work in outreach and justice. Small groups in this program series read about Christian spirituality. They try out new prayer and meditation practices, learn from spiritual teachers and wisdom figures, and have honest conversations about both the joys and the struggles of our lives and of the world. The series is designed to help participants cultivate active listening. It creates space for sharing and also time to connect personal spirituality with the call to love and serve others. The series includes time of reflection on a personal letter from a contemporary spiritual pathfinder. So something unique about the series is that Just Faith Ministries commissioned these letters. We call them bearings letters, from various authors who bear witness to their own personal struggles to live an authentic life, and they help us find our own bearings amidst the complexity of the world around us. Contributors include contemplative teachers, writers, ministers, social activists. These letters address the reality of what it is to be a person of faith in this world in an honest, practical, and personal way. And that's a really beautiful, unique component of this series. The first program in the series is featured on the image on the slide in front of you, Out of the Light, Creating Sacred Space for Self and Others. And this program is designed to create a space for participants to clear a space within themselves while also making room for others. There are moments in this program to be present, to embrace silence and active listening, and cultivate a posture of gratitude and wonder. The second program in the series is Into the Dark, Bearing Witness to Suffering and Mystery. And this program encourages participants to learn about, bear witness to, and lament the injustices in the world around us. And recognizing that process of lament and bearing witness informs our personal and social response. And the third program in the series is titled Down to Earth, Embracing Healing, Justice, and Joy. And this program encourages participants to live in hope that an end to suffering and injustice is possible. There are different books used throughout the series, 2 different books for each program, but there is one element that is consistent, the Engaging Spirituality Journal, which is a journal specifically written for this program that allows time for meditation, reflection, scripture engagement, and is used throughout the entire series by each participant. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what you can expect, kind of more of the nuts and bolts of our program. But I wanted to pause for a second and invite you to find that chat button again, because I know Kristen and I have been talking here for a minute. And if you feel up for it, to send in the chat what program catches your eye the most. You know, what might you be most interested in engaging about or learning about in this upcoming year? If something comes to mind, I'd invite you to send that in the chat. If not, no big deal. I'd just love to see what interests you all. Okay, I'll let the chats come in. Okay, we've got a communication tools and engaging spirituality. Thank you, Celeste. Some more specific questions. Great. Well, I'll finish out these 2 slides and then we'll open it up for you to ask questions that are relevant to your particular interests. So what can you expect? Our programs are designed for small groups, as we've said multiple times, and they are between 8 and 10 total sessions, depending on the specific program. Within your program, you'll have the opportunity to invite a guest speaker, someone to come who is a topic expert to share with your group from their experience and the wisdom they've gleaned from their engagement with that topic. There's an opportunity for an immersion experience, and for every program this looks a little bit different, but it's a time to partner with an organization or a group of people who are taking action around this issue, to build relationships, to learn from those individuals and build bridges for future action. The small group programs, we recommend having between 7 to 12 individuals, including facilitators. Every small group is led by 2 volunteer facilitators from within your community. We provide support and training for those facilitators, so you're never left to do it on your own. In addition to those 8 to 10 sessions, there are weekly assignments, and this is a time for participants to engage with topic experts through books, through videos, sometimes podcasts, sometimes music, to learn and grow and become informed around the topic, and then to come together in the weekly gatherings and share the wisdom that each individual has gleaned with one another, and to hear that wisdom from one another. The programs, we have currently 2 different registration models. You can register for our programs at a group rate, which is $250. And that's a one-time fee that is paid for the entire small group. We also offer an individual registration model where we eliminate that larger one-time fee, and instead every participant pays a small fee to join the small group. And that fee is on a sliding fee scale based on the individual's financial situation, and it's self-determined or self-selected. And we are more than happy to set up that if that simplifies the registration process. Over the next couple months, we will be transitioning away from that one-time group fee solely to an individual registration. Likely that will not begin until next month or the following month. We will make that clear on our website, but just want to give you a heads up that that transition will be taking place. So what can you expect in an individual session? Every session is different because every program is different, but generally you can expect to begin with an opening prayer and or a meditation, depending on whether you have the Christian version of a program or the more broadly spiritual version. There will be plenty of time for dialogue. Oftentimes there's a video or an activity that you watch or engage with, and then there's time to process and share with your fellow participants. A time for break and announcements, followed by another time of dialogue where individuals get to reflect on their weekly assignments. And then the sessions end with a closing prayer or meditation. So that is a little bit about some of the nuts and bolts. Kristen is going to share with you all an announcement about the programs we'll be releasing this coming year. And then we will open the floor for questions.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about our new programs hopefully in the fall of 2023, if all goes as planned. We're planning to launch a program on seeking justice alongside Indigenous communities. So we're thrilled about that and in the process of writing that now. And then in 2024, we are looking at a program that would be either in Spanish or a bilingual Spanish-English program. So the topic is yet to be determined, and we're doing a lot of research around that as well. So something to look forward to.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kristen. So I do see a few questions that have come in the chat. Thank you for all of you who've sent messages there. And I think Kristen, I'll start with those. I'll read the questions aloud in case anyone's not able to get into the chat. And then we'll open the floor for anyone to unmute and share a question. So let's start with what I'm seeing. There's an individual who says that they're being called to work with Spanish-speaking immigrants in their area, and we're wondering what program would be a good place to start. Kristen, do you have a response for that?
Sure. Well, I would invite this person, if they are interested, to talk with me about creating the Spanish language program. And I would just love to hear the context of your community and what your community might be interested in, kind of help to guide my own thinking. I'll put my email in the chat in just a minute. If you are working with folks who are not immigrants and would like to, or even with folks who are immigrants, because most people who are immigrants probably don't know about this information as well, then I would recommend our immigration justice program. It does a great kind of one-on-one on immigration policy and some of the obstacles that immigrants face and come into the United States. So yeah, this could be a really good place to start, and I will send my email in the chat.
Great, thank you, Kristen. Someone else has asked whether or not we will be offering virtual small group opportunities. And the answer to that is yes, we do offer some national virtual small group opportunities, and we offer those every season. So fall, winter, and spring. If folks are interested in doing programs in the summer, I will be happy to recruit facilitators for the summer, but usually folks are more interested in taking a break and enjoying a little space in the summer. But we offer a few of those, and really those small groups are open to anyone. We publicize them on our website. I can send a link to our current offerings right now in a moment through the chat. And the reason we are offering those is to meet a couple different needs. One, most common need is when an individual finds themselves in a community where they can't recruit a small group, or they're in a church that's not interested in hosting a small group. This can be a great way to stay engaged and learn and participate. Another reason that we offer these small groups is to create a space for individuals to try out a program before they bring it back to their local community and advocate for it in their local community. So if you want to participate in a virtual small group. If you find yourself in one of those situations or another situation I didn't name, we'd be more than happy to have you, and you can expect those on a consistent basis and to be publicized in our monthly newsletter as well as on our website. Okay, I might have missed some questions in the chat, so forgive me if I did. I would invite anyone to unmute who has a question or to send it again via the chat.
Yeah, I said something. I have a specific issue or question where I really need some help. Here in Albuquerque, in our local parish, Holy Rosary, we are affiliated with the Industrial Areas Foundation, which is a community-based organization all over the country, and it's ecumenical. And what we do every week, we have our regular meeting to plan issues, but we always do a half hour of an hour and 15 minutes is formation. Our local deacon has taken us through all the Catholic principles of, Catholic social teaching that we got from the USCCB site. We've gone through Communities of Salt and Light. We've gone through several of Francis's letters. And what we're doing now is we're taking some of the Industrial Areas Foundation principles like relationality, like power, all those things, and trying to give that piece. Basically, we're a faith and justice group out of a parish, but we're affiliated with a larger group in the city that deal with issues that arise, and we deal with them as they come up. What I'm looking for is for something, maybe a section that we could do maybe for 4 to 6 months, just, half-hour pieces that we could to pull together what's happening in the Industrial Areas Foundation, the community-based organization, and what we're doing in our parish, in our Catholic parish. Now, the closest thing, and I was going to call Jack, but I thought, well, I'd listen to hear. He did an incredible presentation. Well, he did the whole day for the Texas Mission Council a few years ago. And what he did is he took the parish, the way it's looked at pre-Vatican II, and the parish as it should be looked post-Vatican II. Yeah, and it was the presentation. I did several hours, but that particular presentation was about 2 hours long. But if there is any way that piece could be put into some kind of a discussion format or pieces, that would be just dynamite. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, and I'm willing to chat with anybody if I could. Again, we've got our stuff, but I'm just looking to the future. Right. And I've participated in Just Faith projects through the years, and you all are wonderful. You do great work, but I just was hoping you could maybe customize something for my needs. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for sharing your context. I would love to continue that conversation and think about it a little bit and talk with Jack offline about that particular presentation he gave. Off the top of my head, I'm not exactly sure what would be a good fit, because as we said, our programs are designed to be done over the course of 8 to 10 weeks with much longer sessions, as you know, we have with your past experience with Just Faith. So I don't want to, shut down the conversation. So I'll make a note to follow up with you, and we'll maybe get a little creative. As Jack
if I could interrupt a second, I just see the note from Jack, and he says that a lot of it's included in his book. Mm-hmm. Well, it is, and it is. We got his book, and it's excellent. But that particular piece, those 2 hours that he did, was very focused on pre-Vatican and post-Vatican parish. And it just resonated with the people at the Mission Council. But again, we have used his book, but and I'll go back and review that again. But I just need something that, like a lesson plan. I'm a retired teacher, so I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. If you give me, should I call you or give you my email or?
I'll put my email in the into the chat as well. If you would just shoot me an email and we can chat about that a little bit more.
We'll do that. And thank you for listening. I didn't mean to monopolize all this, but I really do.
Nope, you're just fine. We still have time. Kristen, was there something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to say, Alfonso, you reminded me of something very important that I missed. But also, I just wanted to mention that Jack has been the author of many of these, and me and others as well have released these through the Just Faith Network, these weekly or monthly resources that oftentimes folks are asked to read or listen to an article or watch a video, or sometimes Jack has a meditation that he's written. And then there's some discussion questions around that. And they're designed to be a little bit shorter. And that's through the Just Faith Network. So maybe when, if you and Leela talk, or I'm willing to, of course, willing to talk as well, we could talk about how to access those resources.
Super, that would be great. I'll put my information contact. Thank you so much.
Great. And I see, Ruth, I see your hand. If you have a question, we'd love to hear it.
Sure. I took a Just Faith course very early on here in the Virginia Beach area. And it was well designed and really engaging. The one challenge that I had, and I'm curious to see how you're addressing it now, is that some of the films and some of the things we saw were sort of like re-traumatizing as an African American. And so there were times I didn't feel comfortable saying what was so, because, you know, being brought up in America, I've learned how to fit in, how to make people comfortable. So to really go to the pain of it all, because it was a mixed group, it felt like there was not an opportunity to do that. So I'm just curious how in terms of how your small groups are they homogeneous when they break out, or are your facilitators different identity groups, or how is that? Yeah, you understand what? So I'm asking about the level of safety in terms of authentic conversation.
I can speak to that a little bit. Thank you so much for that question. That's really important and something that we've been thinking about too as we develop these programs. I will say this is especially our racial justice series, but really all of our programs do cover really tough issues. And we have a consultant who has been leading conversations around racial justice and other tough topics for years and years, who has a lot of experience in that, who we'd be happy to connect you with. I have some ideas of how to go about that, and we're working on, really incorporating that into the programs themselves. But, one thing you can do is encourage your group to take a deep breath and make sure that it's known to folks that they can step out of the room whenever they want to, no questions asked. Checking in with folks in your group and making sure that you have someone to talk to if you are, if you're facilitating. We recommend, especially if you have a diverse group, having two facilitators, of course. And if you have a diverse group, there should be at least one facilitator of color. And also, if it is helpful to have affinity groups, and that there's many small group opportunities throughout our programs. And if it's helpful to have affinity groups, by all means, definitely do that. But I think as I said first, I think the most helpful resource is to talk with our consultant about how to address this. And of course, we're happy to talk more, as she's really the one who has so much experience in this. And is that helpful? Is that helpful, Ruth?
Well, it's helpful, Kristen, in the sense that it feels like there's been movement. In other words, the class that I took about 2 or 3 years ago, there was not a lot of opening to that conversation, because I think the program was well designed, but thinking about separating people, because I know in my experience, when I separate people, they say, well, that sounds like integration. I said, well, it sounds like segregation. So it is an opportunity to segregate, to come back together, so people can feel comfortable doing what they do. So the fact that you're thinking about it and you have someone working on it means that there's been progress. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely, and happy to talk more and hear if you're willing to have offer suggestions. We'd be happy to hear that. So thank you so much for bringing that up.
Sure.
And one thing that feels relevant to mention to all of you, to let you know, is that as an organization, for the last, I think it's 2 years, coming up on 2 years now, we have been going through working with an organization to help us go through an anti-racism change process, and that has been organization-wide, so affecting everything that we do, examining it with an anti-racism lens, and having consultants who can guide us and offer their expertise and wisdom. And so something that we are now working with another contractor on is building out a training for facilitators around these topics and how they can be better equipped to create a space that is safe for all, and talking about specifically these issues, Ruth. So we are where we're not able to have the wisdom and expertise, we are seeking that out and building partnerships and relationships, and really hoping to grow in a lot of different ways as it connects to anti-racism. So
well, that's
yeah, I guess to say we're in process, and we're committed.
Good. That's I'm always impressed when we're willing to do our own work so that we can help others. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? I will say now that tomorrow I'll be sending a follow-up email with this recording and my contact information. So if you have a question that you didn't want to ask on the call, or maybe something that comes to mind later tonight, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to have a follow-up conversation to connect you with any other team member that it might be appropriate for you to chat with. We really are here to help, and you are the reason we exist, to help folks like yourselves find meaningful ways to learn and to grow and to take action. So don't hesitate to reach out about anything.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, I don't see any other hands popping up or any other questions coming through the chat. Kristen, anything else you want to add?
Just that I'm thankful for you all, and I'm if you're here, I know that you're interested in working for justice in your community. So I'm just glad to be working in solidarity with you all, and let us know how we can stand alongside you in that.
Okay. Well, have a good rest of your day, and look
Bye.
forward to talking with you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.